27 January 1946. Munich. In a cold apartment on the second floor of a building with no glass, Carl M. writes a line that could not be spoken aloud. We trade bread for cigarettes and silence for absolution. The date and the place are precise. The ink hesitates. The page is a sliver of a school notebook taken from a box that once held sugar. The sentence is treasonous to the myth that is forming around him. It names the bargain that underwrites the peace that is still a rumor. It reveals the arithmetic of the coming years. The city is a map of negative space. Streets are canyons of brick and ash. The word is Trümmerlandschaft, a landscape of rubble. In the archives of the Munich Stadtmuseum, the photographs sheared away like lids, walls with their insides showing, rooms open to the weather, painted patterns lifted to the sky. The women lift bricks. They wear scarves. They stand in long chains and pass the path down the line. Trümmerfrauen. The word becomes both an honor and an alibi. They become an image of endurance. The photographs, pasted into albums and sent to mothers in the countryside, compress a city's destruction into the posture of work. Men return from captivity in groups or not at all. The missing are an uncounted ledger. There is a grammar of waiting. The letters come with faint stamps, stalag numbers, a few lines from a camp in France or Britain or the Soviet Union. Then silence. Then the talk runs out. The occupation begins as rumor and becomes regulation. Curfews, orders pinned to telephone poles, foreign uniforms in German streets. The first week is cautious. The second is administrative. The third is everyday. The U.S. military government, OMG Gus, writes in its early reports that the population is docile, hungry, and evasive. The British in their Control Commission note a similar mixture of obedience and prevarication. The Soviets in the East talk of anti-fascist cleansing while reorganizing farms. Fear of retribution becomes a weather system. It is in the way doors close more quickly. It is in the way conversation compresses into monosyllables. In Allied intelligence summaries from the summer of 1945, the phrase, "I did not know," appears like a watermark. It is not yet a defense. It is a signal of the grammar to come. Hunger defines the mathematics of the immediate years. The winter of 1946-47 is called the Hunger Winter. The calorie counts are precise. In the U.S. zone, the official ration in some cities dips to 1,000 calories per day. In others, it is 1,200. In the British zone, to 1,000. For heavy labourers, more. For the old, less. These numbers appear in occupation reports that list food allocations by district and complain of trucks without fuel. Bread is measured in slices. Potatoes are counted. Sugar is a rumour. Meat is a story told by children in the courtyard. The black market supplies a new algebra. A pack of cigarettes equals 2 pounds of flour equals 1 kilogram of butter equals a week's rent equals 3 shirts. The currencies shift daily. The prices speak the truth of scarcity. What Germans call the Schieberwirtschaft, the dealer economy, runs through bombed cellars and along railway sidings. Without it, the numbers do not add up. Cigarettes become a second currency and a first morality. American brands are tokens of the new order. A lucky strike is a unit. A camel is an equation. British intelligence officers note that cigarettes have become the common medium of exchange and a barometer of morale. What cannot be bought with stamps can be bought with smoke. Curfew holds the nights in a fist. In Munich, the order is posted, no one on the streets after 9. In Hamburg, after 10. In Frankfurt, the hours change with the season. Women carry buckets quickly. Men walk with heads down. There are checkpoints where boys in helmets ask for papers in a language you do not understand. The police wear old uniforms turned inside out. The city leans on its own ruins. Dachau is 10 kilometers from Karl's room. For years it had been a rumor in a good country. In April 1945, the rumor walked into the streets as skeletal men. The Allied order to bring the local population to look has the tone of a sermon and the structure of a schedule. Karl goes with a group from his block. He watches a film in a hall. He walks past barracks and looks at beds that are too narrow. He does not touch anything. He reads captions. He writes nothing down that day. In the Allach district, there is a factory that had assembled aircraft engines. In the spring of 1945, it emptied itself onto the road. Now it is a shell. Karl applies for a job there. He is 30. He has a scar on his forearm from 1943 when a door frame fell. He was a bookkeeper before the last firestorm. He had joined the party in 1937 because his boss wrote it on a form and said, "Sign." He had marched in 2 torchlight parades. He had averaged numbers in ledgers while men disappeared. The denazification questionnaire arrives like a second ration card. The Fragebogen has 131 questions. It asks every affiliation, every donation, every membership, every pair of hands you shook. It is a census of conscience organized by boxes. The Spruchkammern, the tribunals built out of paper and hope, sit in schoolrooms and former Nazi party halls and sort the population into 5 categories: Hauptschuldig, major offenders; Belastete offenders; Minder belastet, lesser offenders; Mitlaufer followers; and Entlastet, exonerated. The mathematics of guilt become bureaucratic. There is a ratio of deeds to years and of positions to intent. Acrobatics of testimony provide a bridge from one category to another. The Perselschein, the Perselschein D, the Purcell certificate, named after a laundry powder, becomes a trope for exoneration by character reference. He was only a member in form, a neighbor writes in a cramped hand. He helped me once, a woman writes. He is no danger. The forms are bundled and stamped. In the Bundesarchiv, denazification files show a pattern. The major offenders are few. Party officials and SS men and those who left too many witnesses are classified, tried, sentenced. Offenders include men who signed off on confiscations, taught in party schools, issued orders. Lesser offenders include many managers. Followers include everyone else who cannot be easily placed and who can produce the right papers and the right neighbor. Exoneration is an art accomplished by a sort of moral barter. Karl sits before a panel in July 1946 in a gymnasium that smells of chalk and cold soup. He is a curve on a graph. He is a test case for a policy. He has 2 letters in his pocket and a third in his neighbor's apron. The man with a moustache on the panel asks for dates. 1937, Karl says. No office held. No speeches, no leadership, he says. A follower. The record of his contributions is small. The ledger entries are not crimes. He is classified as a Mitläufer, a follower. He is fined a sum he cannot pay. It is converted into a week of rubble clearing. He picks up bricks with the women for 8 days and is given a paper that says he can work. The numbers shift with the needs of the state. The Allied authorities discover that stability is as necessary as justice. The Cold War tightens the timeline. Factories must run. Railways need clerks who can read schedules. Mayors must know how to sign their names and make water flow. In the reports of OM-GUS and the British and French equivalents, phrases appear: pragmatic adjustment, administrative necessity, qualification over past affiliation. The system becomes a machine for sorting that returns most to their offices. Not all are suitable to be punished because the arithmetic of the day requires that the buses run. Far to the east, where Karl's map ends, another Germany bleeds: Silesia, Pomerania, East Prussia, the Sudetenland. The front lines of 1944 and 1945 cut through villages, and then the borders harden in a different configuration. From 1945 to 1947, millions of Germans from those places are expelled by new authorities and by old neighbors who no longer hide their teeth. They arrive in the Western zones as numbers that do not fit. The numbers are precise in reports. 8 million, 10 million. The ink lags behind the wagons. They carry what they can on carts. Rooms in Western towns are measured by a different arithmetic. One room equals 5 expellés equals a divorce in a local household, equals 3 emergency beds in a schoolhouse, equals a petition to the mayor. The arithmetic of space is as relentless as the arithmetic of hunger. The word Einquartierung, forced lodging, acquires a sharpness. The landlords look at their floors and see foreign children. In a town near Kassel in 1946, the mayor writes to the district authority, "Our housing is at 278% occupancy." The British Control Commission margins note, "Consider requisition of officer housing." In Lower Saxony, an officer demands that every room with more than one window take in a family from the east. In Bavaria, a Behelfsheim, an emergency dwelling made of wood and sheet metal, sprouts in a courtyard, shielded by a tarpaulin that used to be a banner. The newcomers carry their own narratives of loss. They bring photographs wrapped in cloth. They bring letters with Polish stamps. They bring stories of roads in January and of bodies on ditches. In the oral histories recorded in the 1980s and stored in regional archives, the phrase "Wir wurden vertrieben," we were driven out, sits like a stone in the opening line. They do not speak of Nazism. They speak of trees and mills left behind. They speak of a schoolhouse burned. They speak of the arithmetic of distance. The locals resent the expellees as a subtraction. They see a bed moved from a child to a stranger. They see their flour divided into smaller portions. They see an accent they do not recognize. Occupation reports note fights. They note petitions written in clear hands. They note, too, the moments when the arithmetic breaks and is replaced by something softer. A loaf left on a step, a dress given to a girl, a job offered and taken. The mathematics of scarcity is not algebra alone. It is also a narrative of exceptions. Under the bridges outside towns are camps of displaced persons, DPs. Jews in particular form communities under UNRA administration. In the US zone, places like Feldafing, Landsberg, Fehrenwald become towns inside of towns. Their gates are guarded by American soldiers. They are not prisons, but they have fences. Inside is Yiddish. Inside is news from Palestine. Inside is news from Palestine. Inside are weddings and songs and schoolrooms. Inside are men with numbers on their arms and women who carry children born in summer 1945, 1946, 1940. German towns live next to these camps, the way a guilty man lives next to a church bell. They hear the sound and choose where to look. The Allied reports are specific. Rations for DPs are higher than for Germans as policy. 2,000 calories for DPs. 1,200 for Germans. In files labeled German public opinion, Jewish question. The resentment is recorded in clear, ugly lines. They get more. They get boots. We suffer. The anti-Semitism that had been weaponized doesn't evaporate with flags. It recalibrates to fit scarcity. There are also moments of contact that do not fit under headings. A German woman in Augsburg remembers in an oral history that a DP doctor treated her daughter's fever. He said nothing about who we were, she says. He was kind. A man in Hanover passes a DP camp every day on the way to the market and leaves eggs at the gate. I had chickens, he writes. I did what I could. These are not redemption stories. They are footnotes in ledgers. In Karl's notebooks, The DP camps are present as lines in a margin. He writes, "I see guards, I see children." The rest is crossed out. The trials in Nuremberg are broadcasts and leaflets. The radio delivers voices in a language that has both law and spectacle. The newsreels show men in headphones and lights like an operating room. The words "crimes against humanity" enter German vocabulary as translation. The people listen. They chew. They turn the dial. They say, "Leaders." They say, "Not us." But the images of the camps return at night as private mathematics. The equation forms and dissolves. This is the arithmetic of guilt in a kitchen. The schoolrooms look forward. The schoolbooks, revised in 1947 and 1948, begin to say words that had been forbidden. They also begin to omit. There is a new grammar for the story of those years. It emphasizes dictatorship and the victims created by Allied bombing. It speaks of the loss of the East. It speaks of the suffering of German civilians. It mentions persecution of the Jews, but in a paragraph that sits between others. In the Bundesarchiv, the Education Ministry files include memos about political reliability and age-appropriate truth. They are not lies. They are calibrations. In June 1948, the currency reform arrives with the force of a new set of rules. 20 June 1948, people stand in lines that bend around blocks. At the desk, they receive new money with an odd Deutsche Mark. The arithmetic changes in a day. Rationing is cut. Black markets collapse like stages. Shop windows fill, not with abundance but with objects. Shoes, bread, soap. In archives, photographs of that week show faces lit by the sight of butter. The joke in Munich is that the stores always had stock. They were waiting for honesty to be worth it. The Berlin blockade begins that same week in a different part of the map and becomes the daily weather in news. Trains stop. Roads are closed. The air fills with the whine of engines. The airlift numbers are a new mathematics. Tons per day. Minutes between landings. Calories delivered by air. The raisin bombers become a legend. Children stand on hills and wave. The Cold War has its first score. Karl's job changes with the money. In August 1948, he is hired as a clerk in a factory that used to make tools for planes. It now makes washing machines with panels that shine. He learns the names of suppliers in America. He writes, ERP next to numbers, European Recovery Program. The Marshall Plan arrives in crates stamped with black letters and with a smell of foreign warehouses. It is not charity. It is a contract. The reports that accompany shipments describe productivity as a form of politics. The factory lights come on for the first time in years without stuttering. The machines turn. The sound is proof. He sits at a desk with a blotter and a stamp and a pencil as sharp as he can make it. The forms are different, but the work is the same. Add columns. Move the figure from one place to another. Make the numbers agree with each other. He can do this. He is good at this. The past sits in the drawer. The democracy that grows around him is real and provisional. The Basic Law is promulgated on 23 May 1949. Bonn is a capital that looks like a town. Konrad Adenauer speaks in sentences that are both paternal and strategic. He promises integration, stability in the West. He promises a line drawn under the past, but not a blindfold. The mathematics of coalition politics requires that he bring men with experience into offices. Experience often has an old membership card in its history. Article 31 of 1951 reintegrates public servants into the state. The need is clear. The price is tallied in whispers. Amnesties are issued for many crimes that can be framed as political rather than murderous. The Cold War accelerates pragmatism. Washington wants a partner that can stand. When that partner's police chiefs and judges sit down, their resumes include years that could not be used as headings 2 years earlier. In Allied files, there is talk of balancing justice against order. In coffee shops, there is talk of the sane faces. Carl moves through those years with caution. He spends Sundays in beer gardens where conversations steer like ships around reefs. A friend was in the Waffen SS. He is now in insurance. A neighbor once signed an order. He now teaches. A municipal official who denied a permit to a Jewish shop in 1939. He now processes building permits at double speed. There are exceptions. There are removals that stick. There are men who drink alone and speak to no one. The arithmetic is not pure. It is weighted by time. The expellees begin to find footing. The expellees begin to find footing. The equalization of burdens law creates a calculus of money and memory. Those who lost property receive payments funded by those who did not. The payment schedules are slow and bureaucratic. They create both relief and resentment. The word Heimat becomes a mobile shrine. Associations of expellees meet in halls and sing songs about rivers they will not see again. They put pressure on the new government. They become a voting bloc that asks for recognition. Their suffering becomes the central grammar in some towns. The victims inside the DP camps are asked to remain off stage. This is a mathematics of public space. The DP camps empty slowly. Ships leave Bremerhaven for Haifa and New York, with people whose pasts are measured in camp numbers. In 1951, Fehrenwald becomes the last in the US zone. It remains a Jewish enclave for years under Bavarian control after UNRRA leaves. Children learn to count in 2 languages. German towns continue to look away and also look over the fence. The world moves on at a pace that cannot be forced by anyone in those rooms. Carl marries in 1950. Her name is Elizabeth. She was a nurse in a hospital that endured nights of sirens and mornings of soap. She has a scar on her palm from a shard of glass that found her in 1944. Together they rent 2 rooms from a widow who moved into the cellar during the last raids and never fully came out. After the currency reform, after the airlift, they buy furniture on installment. A table with legs like columns, a sofa with the smell of new fabric, a wardrobe with a mirror that shows the whole body in winter light. They do not speak about 1938 at that table. In the 1950s, the Wirtschaftswunder appears as a set of photographs, highways with few cars, then more. Men in suits leaning against microcars, women standing in kitchens with refrigerators. The numbers in the files are specific. GDP growth, steel output, hours worked per week, wages. The Marshall Plan ends, but its pattern remains. The American presence is a standard, not an occupation. The film theaters show American stories. German films show villages and kindness, and a past that is rural and unstrained. The present is full of chrome and possibility. The war is present as an experience of basement staircases. It becomes something carried like a folded paper in a wallet. It emerges in ceremonies that place wreaths at stones. The public commemorations in the 1950s are often titled Den Opfern beider Weltkriege, to the victims of both world wars. The grammar is passive. The names on the stones are local. The ceremonies focus on the men who went, not the men who ordered. On some stones later, a second plaque appears. It says, Den Opfern des Nationalsozialismus. The spacing is always awkward. It maps the distance between eras. In the files of education ministries, directives go out to teachers about how to teach the Nazi period. The instructions are careful and circumscribed. Teach the Weimar Republic as fragile. Teach Hitler as a demagogue. Teach the war as a tragedy that fell onto the nation. Teach the camps as a thing that existed somewhere. There are exceptions. There are teachers who speak more plainly, and they lose their positions or they don't. There is no uniformity in the way that memory is distributed as a curriculum. Carl's office receives forms from men who need their pensions, from widows who need validation of death. He stamps names he knew only as neighbors. He does not ask questions about where exactly a husband died in the East. He writes KIA, killed in action. He fills in dates. In 1952, he processes a request from a man who was a guard in a labor education camp. The man's file is thick. The man wants his time counted as police service for his pension. The form has a box for political unreliability. The man's references are persuasive. The supervisor marks "approved" with a pencil that has lost its eraser. Carl has to type the number out. He does not write in his notebook that night. The mathematics of the day has defeated the grammar of confession. At the same time, there is a different arithmetic at work in the world. The Luxembourg Agreement of 1952 begins payments from West Germany to the State of Israel and to Jewish organizations on behalf of survivors. The word is Wiedergutmachung, making good again. The phrase is a prayer, a legal instrument, and a paradox. It does not fit into any sentence easily. People argue about it in beer halls and in Parliament. Carl hears the news on the radio and thinks of the camp near his street. He does not know what to do with the thought. He washes his cup. The 1953 amnesty extends the arithmetic. Many sentenced for political crimes that did not involve direct murders are released. The files in the Bundesarchiv mark the months with the word Entlassung, release. The press reports it as closure. It is not. Some in the US criticize the new leniency. Some in Germany call it long overdue. The Cold War demands a reliable partner. Justice is negotiated as realpolitik. In the East, the narrative runs differently. The SED constructs an anti-fascist state identity. The story there says, "We purged." It says, "The fascists are in Bonn." The denazification is more sweeping for a time. Then the same patterns appear. Functionary replaces functionary. The economy demands continuity. History is a tool. The wall in the mind precedes the wall in the city. Carl meets an ex-Beli family at work in 1954. The woman is from Königsberg. She wraps her hair in a kerchief and makes coffee on a burner that smells of paraffin. She tells him that she was 18 in January 1945 and that the road to Pillow was a river of bodies. She says, "We came over ice." Her eyes are empty of water. He feels his own face change like plaster. He says, "I am sorry." The sentence falls without a hook to catch on. This is the arithmetic of just two people. It is the simplest and the hardest. He does not say that he remembers standing in a crowd in 1938 when the glass fell. He does not say that he watched men with armbands pull another man by the hair. He does not say that he walked away because he had to get bread. He does not write this down in 1954. He writes instead, "Worked 9 hours. Paid invoice." The Cold War continues to convert memory into strategy. Rearmament becomes a debate. The new Bundeswehr is created in 1955. Men in their 30s and 40s are asked to put on uniforms again. Some say yes. Some say never again. The numbers in the newspapers are troop levels, not casualties. The mathematics of defense draws a map on which the front line runs through the living room. A siren test in 1956 sends people into doorways with faces that remember darkness. In files labeled "Public Sentiment," add an hour. Allied officers in Bonn report that the people want stability more than purity. The DPs who became citizens of other countries write postcards from Israel and Canada to friends who stayed. They address them as lieber Herr. They are courteous. The bitterness is in the choice of language. They do not write in German when they can avoid it. Karl's child is born in 1957 in a hospital with white tiles and German nurses and an American incubator. He is given a name that could have been written in 1910. Later, the boy will sit in a classroom and draw a picture of a jet. His father will watch and feel something like terror and pride. The boy will be taught about the past as a diagram in a book. He will come home with questions that sound like the radio. Karl will say, "We did what we had to do." He will also say nothing. In 1959, a synagogue in Cologne is defaced with swastikas. The press covers it with the seriousness of a wound that has reopened. The Frankfurt Auschwitz trials begin in 1963. Men in suits with hair parted precisely hear witness statements that go on for hours. The court becomes a theatre of facts. The present must listen to the past in a voice that shakes. Karl reads about it in the newspaper on the tram and has to get off one stop earlier because his hands are shaking. He is middle-aged now. His heart hurts in a way that is not medical. He keeps his notebooks in a drawer. He has written the same sentence on the first page of each since 1946. It is a sentence about the exchange rate between silence and absolution. He has watched the price go up and down. He has seen inflation and austerity. He knows which years were bargains. In an interrogation report from a small town near Bremen in 1946, an American officer writes, "The man kept saying, 'We are not monsters, we are not saints, we are tired.'" The report is a psalm translated into bureaucracy. The man could have been Karl. He could have been someone who worked next to Karl. He could have been someone whose file Karl stamped. The Trümmerfrauen grow old and are given wreaths. Statues of women with baskets appear in squares. The DP camps become housing estates. The rail yard where young American soldiers smoked is now a car park. The ashes in the city's corners are still in the soil, and children who dig for marbles sometimes find glass that is older than their parents. The past is geologically present even when it is officially archived. The arithmetic of memory becomes generational. Karl's son will ask more pointed questions after 1968, when students in other cities throw stones at signs that say names that no longer fit the present. The father will answer with more words and fewer facts. He will say, "Complicated." He will say, "We had nothing to eat." He will say, "There were bombs." He will say, "We were afraid." These are all true. They are not the whole. Occupation files, denazification files, Allied intelligence summaries, Bundesarchiv records, oral histories, together they make a story that is not linear. It is a set of ledgers laid next to one another on a table. The columns do not always add up. The sums do not always agree. The mathematics of guilt is not proof. It is an approximate calculation, revisable with new entries. The arithmetic of hunger is more exact. It writes itself on bodies. The arithmetic of rooms is in bed frames. The arithmetic of the Cold War has been entered in budgets and in the placement of missiles. The arithmetic of bread is a daily audit. Karl's work becomes less urgent in the 1970s. He watches apprentices with long hair make mistakes he would have avoided. He pulls coat sleeves down over numbers and shows them which line to follow. He adds with a pencil out of habit. He writes in his notebook less often. The country is wealthy. The new scandals are about money and not about murder. There is talk about terrorism and about guilt that has found a new instrument. He listens. He watches. He turns 70. His wife dies in a hospital with art on the walls. He is left with the table and the wardrobe and the sofa that has been reupholstered twice. He thinks about selling the notebooks. He does not. He looks out of a window that now has glass. He runs a finger over the sill where the paint is smooth. He remembers when it was not. He cannot forget. On the last page, he copies the line from 27 January 1946. He adds numbers to it. He writes dates next to it like points on a graph. He writes 1946, hunger. 1946, hunger. 1946, hunger. 1949, basic law. 1949, basic law. 1950, he writes, "We built with bricks in our hands and with exclusions in our throats." He writes, "We traded bread for cigarettes in the open and silence for absolution in the privacy of our kitchens." He writes that what he and his generation learned was to live with a ledger that would not settle. He writes names he has not said aloud for decades. Men at the desk next to him, a woman in a line at a police station in 1938, a boss who smiled, a neighbor who did not come home. He thinks of the man from Königsberg and of the doctor at the DP camp. He thinks of a child born in 1947 behind a fence. He thinks of his son and of a new word, Verantwortung, responsibility. At the end of a day in late autumn, he sits at his desk with the window open a crack. The city is quiet. He can hear traffic that was unimaginable in 1946. He can smell bread in a way that no longer hurts. He closes the notebook. He writes one last line. "The war after the war ran not across a field, but through our papers and our memories, and the front line passed through my desk."